Welcome to Mind, Money, Balance, the no guilt, no shame podcast to help you get your mind and money in balance. I'm your host, Lindsay. I'm a financial therapist and coach, woman of color, and popcorn connoisseur. I am so glad you're here. Let's go. Welcome back to the podcast. I know that it has been an intense several weeks for a lot of folks who are allied with or are in the Asian American community. And I just wanted to say to those of you who reached out to me, who amplified the message that I shared on the podcast last week, who shared my video or Instagram post or forwarded my email to anybody, thank you. You really did help play a role in helping the Asian American Pacific Islander community be seen, heard, and validated. And at the same time, I beg of you to not forget about us as things move forward. And I don't say this to make you feel bad or to harp on you, but I just say, look, like we have seen this happen before where there's an uprise in solidarity and hope and accountability. But much like the black squares that were posted in June to represent solidarity with the black community, there's a good chance people are going to forget about us in their anti-racism work. And I don't say that to tell you give up, don't try, don't do it. It's really about not being naive and also about being cognizant of the importance of moving sustainably toward social and economic justice. You know, I've mentioned before, you don't have to be out in the streets or sharing things on social media or running for office, but you could in order to make a difference. I do have a blog post about what to do when you're feeling hopeless, and that includes an array of different ways to get involved in your community, right? We know that community care and solidarity really starts in our literal neighborhoods, towns, and cities. So getting involved hyper locally can be a great way to help move the needle and to really see a difference quickly, right? Because social justice is an uphill, long, exhausting, evolving battle, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't be striving for a more beautiful and equitable tomorrow. So just wanted to say thank you and make sure to include continued solidarity in your process as time goes on. Yeah. So with that, I have a few exciting things coming up. Of course, today I have my guest, Haneen Ahmad, and we are going to talk about all things in terms of what it feels like to be an entrepreneurial therapist, how she looks at her strategy with her money, and how she's learned from her money mistakes. So we've got a great conversation with Haneen coming up. And in terms of fun things coming up in the world of mind, money, balance, my book, The Financial Anxiety Solution, officially turned 1 on Thursday, February 18th of 2021. And to celebrate, because if you can imagine, this time last year, things were just about to shut down. So I only did one book event. Everything else got canceled. And people weren't willing to move things online that early on in the pandemic because they were like, oh, this will change in 2 weeks and 4 weeks. But of course, we know that didn't. And I was like, man, I should definitely celebrate this. I want to celebrate that there are over 1,000 copies sold, which is super exciting. And so I want to invite you, yes, you, to a free book birthday party on Monday, March 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern. I'll give a brief overview of the book. We'll play some trivia. I love trivia and I love games, and there will be prizes. And then there will be time at the end to ask me questions about the book, about financial anxiety, or just about me, right? And I will be sending out abundance recipes. If you own the book, there are abundance mocktails and cocktails at the very start of the book to help kind of set the tone and ease you into working with your financial anxiety. So those recipes will go out with the book birthday party. If you want to RSVP, I recommend going to my Instagram bio at Mind Money Balance on Instagram. And if you tap on the link, there will be a button there to RSVP. If you're not on Instagram, no worries. Just shoot me an email. It's Lindsay, LINDSAY, at mindmoneybalance.com, and I will make sure that you get RSVP'd for that. So again, that book birthday party is Monday, March 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern. The other exciting thing coming up is another full moon money shame release party. It's going down on February 28th, which is a Sunday. These are so fun, so powerful. They are about journaling through and releasing any shameful money stories that are holding you back from stepping into feeling comfortable and confident with your money. They're closed, meaning only people who sign up are able to attend. They are not recorded. It is not a bait and switch to an upsell. These are things that I'd love to do. It's been really important for me to lean into my spirituality, and astrology has really been powerful for me. So same kind of deal there. If you want to register, you can head to the show notes or the link in my bio at Mind Money Balance and tap on that full moon money shame release party button. I don't even know if I breathed during that intro. All right, with that, let's get into chatting with Ms. Haneen Ahmad. All right, Haneen Ahmad, welcome to the Mind Money Balance podcast. I'm so glad that you are here today.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here today with you.
Yes. So why don't you tell everyone who you are, both professionally, but also personally?
Yeah, thanks. So I am a therapist that is based in Seattle, Washington. I've been in therapy in the counseling field for almost a decade now, and I've kind of seen a little bit of everything. My specialties right now include substance abuse counseling, eating disorder counseling, as well as anxiety and depression. So that's kind of the main area of focus that I have with clients right now. And personally, I'm a mom of two, and I have a lot of hats that I wear and different things that I juggle in terms of professional and personal.
Cool. So one thing I've been finding myself drawn to asking people is, what are you doing for fun or for joy these days?
So my husband and I were trying to find a way to get in kind of some alone time away from the kids and away from work. And what we came up with was a good mixture of that and exercise. And so we hired a private yoga instructor who comes and does yoga with us every Saturday morning. And so that's been like a really nice way to not only connect to each other, but also to utilize it as a stress reliever.
Lovely. That sounds like a good 2-for-1 where you're getting some alone time in, and you're also, what I love about taking any sort of exercise class is that I don't have to think, right? You just kind of show up, or rather they show up, and then you just follow along. And it's such a nice break. Often when we're exercising on our own, you have to think about like, what am I going to do next? And am I motivated enough to do the next thing? So that is so wonderful. So we are here.
Yeah, it's kind of like our reset button.
Yes, it's a total reset button. So we're here to talk about money, of course. Can you tell us a little bit about how you have been working on your own relationship with money? I would say specifically this year, but if you could give us a little background, that would be helpful too.
Yeah, thank you. So earlier this year, I joined something called the Community, which is a membership-based community for women who are trying to learn more about money and really empower themselves to make financial decisions that will help them move towards being financially independent or just kind of setting their own money goals. And so that has been really a big game changer for me, because prior to that, I didn't really give money a whole lot of thought. I kind of put it back on the back burner and really allowed kind of my husband to deal with most of the money stuff, which has been great. But as more money questions started to arise, I realized there was a lot of things I didn't have answers to, or I just didn't know as much about. And so I thought, okay, I would love to be more educated around this. And so it's really helped empower me to kind of start to gain more of that knowledge and really begin to kind of understand what kind of a role I want money to play in my life now and in the future.
And what have been some of the big takeaways from being in the community?
I know, it's a cute name. So some big takeaways. Well, it's nice because they offer so many different focus groups, I guess you could say. And so my big takeaway that I have been putting my efforts into have been planning for retirement, as well as planning for my kids' college savings and kind of their financial security, or part of their financial future security. And so those are the two areas that I've been focusing on.
Lovely. And how does your relationship with money show up in your work as a therapist?
I hadn't given it as much thought as I have this past year because I've started, my business started like about 18 months ago, I would say. And so once I started that, I really started to set bigger financial goals for myself and really examine like, what is that going to take in order to achieve those goals? And so through that, I've been able to say, okay, so if I've got big financial goals, I need to shift my money mindset around. And so maybe whereas I wasn't as big of a risk taker before, now I am. And now I'm looking at things in a different perspective or with maybe a more creative lens on how to bring money in or how to scale it in terms of my business. And I'm sure we'll get to it later, but one of the things that I've been focusing on is reading a book called Profit First and really honing in on that system and how to utilize that system within my business.
So let's actually go to profit first. First, you are not the only therapist who has brought that up on this show. A lot of therapists love that approach. Can you tell folks a little bit about one, what the approach is, and then two, why it's resonated for you?
Absolutely. So I haven't gotten through the whole thing. I'm listening to it on Audibles, but what I like about the system is it forces you to examine if you're not at a place where you can really be paying yourself and paying yourself what you want and what you deserve, then you're going to need to make changes within your structure. So whether it's like operating costs and reevaluating those and trying to find ways where you can bring those down, those kinds of things. Some people will just kind of be like, okay, so I'm going to take care of all those things, but I'm going to put my pay on the back burner and I'm not going to pay myself. And that, I guess, in the long run, it's not a sustainable system that you want to do. And so Profit First kind of helps shift that system that you're doing and that system or that way of allocating funds and making sure that expenses are covered. So the reason why it resonated with me specifically is I'm part of this group practice exchange that helps clinicians set themselves up for private practice. And I started to notice that there were a lot of people in the group that were talking about how successful they were and sharing numbers. And when I dug a little bit deeper, one of the things that a lot of them had in common was that they had all read Profit First and had been implementing the system in their business. So I thought, okay, so if this is kind of the general consensus among them in terms of success and financial success within their practices, I really wanted to take a look at it. And so that's what prompted me to kind of dive in deeper with it.
It sounds like this entire year, really the past 18 months, you've been on quite the journey in terms of getting in tune with your money. What prompted you to start looking at money more deeply?
So my two little ones are 7 and almost 3. And so prior to them kind of really getting a little bit older when we were in just like infant and toddler phases, was I really kind of put work on the back burner so I could spend more time with them. And I knew I didn't want to pause my career, but I knew that I wanted to invest less in the career and then invest more in them. And so now that they're a little bit older and work and school looks a lot different these days. So in terms of what I can give in terms of my time, things have shifted. I always tell people I'll never go back to a 40-hour work week, but I do like that sweet spot of like 25 hours a week. And so I want to figure out how to best utilize those 25 hours a week to bring in the most money while also doing something that I love, but to make sure that the 10 years of experience that I have behind me is being put to good use and bringing in an income that's going to help me and my family.
I heard a lot of the motivation there was lifestyle based and really strategic, right? You were like, here is what I want. I need help figuring out how to make a 25-hour work week work for me and for my family. And I also need to figure out how to be thinking long term in terms of saving for my children's education fund. So I heard a lot of strategy based things. How much of a role did money mindset play in your journey over these past 18, 24 months?
I kind of shared a little bit about how I'm in a private practice setting right now, but it's with a group practice that I don't own. And so the money mindset stuff really started to come up when I thought, okay, I'm working for somebody else, but what maybe I should be doing is really focusing 100% of my efforts on working for myself and really establishing something for myself. And so I think for a lot of practice owners, when they start to think like that, it can feel really scary and really intimidating because when you're working for somebody else, it's like, okay, if money mistakes are made, that's okay. But then it's like, it's yourself. You're like, uh-oh, who do I turn to for support or what do I do? Or how can I minimize it if a money mistake is made? So I try to choose my mindset wisely and think, okay, I'm capable of doing it. Mistakes are definitely going to happen. That's always been part of my mindset, whether it's based in money or based in parenting or based in relationships or whatever. And so I try to be somebody who isn't afraid of mistakes, but then uses them as learning opportunities and uses them as a way to make sure that I have a support system built up that will help me through those kind of money mistakes.
Yeah. And I heard that that's really important for you too, between the community and between the group practice exchange, having other people around to just either run ideas by or get inspired by seems to be something that's been really important for you in your money journey. Has that always been the way that you have liked to learn, is in community?
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm really an extrovert at heart. And, I've done a couple other business ventures and I've always been in places where it's very community based and either the work that I'm doing is community based or the way I network is very community based. Even when I run workshops, I have my best friend is a master facilitator and we always do our workshops together. And so I always think like when you're doing it with somebody else, it's just a lot more fun. And I love supporting other people and other people's passions and dreams as well. And so I would definitely say being community based has definitely been a core component.
Tell us a little bit about some of those other business ventures.
So when I was in college, I ran a clothing line. And I kind of used it as a means of making rent, I guess. I wasn't one of those students who took out a loan in college for undergrad or graduate school. And so I really wanted to make sure that I found a way to be able to support myself, pay my bills, make sure school was taken care of without having that extra debt coming out of it. So I had a clothing line and I would team up with different organizations on campus, whether I was hosting a sale on the Hub lawn, whether I was involved in a fashion show on campus, showcasing my work that way. And so I did that and it was probably for maybe like 6 years. And then as I had my first son, that I kind of decided to close that chapter of the fashion line, even though it was a lot of fun, but I think it ran its course and it was time to finish it. But it was a really good learning opportunity. It taught me a lot about business. It taught me a lot about money, taught me a lot about the importance of building a strong community and support system for yourself as a business owner and as an entrepreneur.
So, Haneen, you were mentioning that you've done quite a few different businesses. Did you grow up in an entrepreneurial household?
I did, absolutely. Growing up, my father always encouraged different business ventures. He was always looking into different business opportunities for himself. And he did it while also maintaining a career in computer science. And, even as a child, he made me feel like my opinion about business and entrepreneurial opportunities was valued. Like he would explore different business ventures for himself, but he'd say, what do you think? And as like an 8 or 9-year-old girl, to have your dad ask you what you thought about his idea was really empowering. And so I think I really got that part from him.
That's so cool. What other early money memories do you think shaped your current relationship with money?
I think my parents taught me a lot about curbing impulsivity when spending. And so first, not to spend money right when you get it. And then second, not to spend it right away without giving thought or reflection. And so if there was something I really wanted to purchase, I wasn't one of those people that would go to the mall and purchase it right away. It was more like I'd go to the mall, I'd be like, okay, I really want that. I'd go home, I'd sleep on it. And then I'd be like, okay, I really want it. Or nah, I'll wait for something else. And so I think that part probably played a role and really impacted my money choices as well.
I mean, listening to you, it sounds like you've just continued to build upon some really solid foundational messages around money. What about money mistakes or awkward money moments that you've had in business or in life?
I'd say probably one of my biggest and most embarrassing money mistakes. I'm totally just going to put myself out there and say it. When I was working for a community mental health organization, I had a 401k. And instead of taking that 401k account when I left that organization and then reinvesting it or doing something with it, I just kind of totally forgot about it. And I didn't do anything with it for several years. And I felt like, oh my gosh, when I finally did something with it, I was like, I can't believe I made that mistake. That was such a big mistake. So there's big things like that, which, working through that with a financial coach and through the community membership, I've been able to figure out ways to kind of make up for that. So there's big things like that, but there's also really little things in business too. Like when you have a client who no shows and you have to charge them a fee, and that can be really awkward. And you have to be able to have kind of those tough conversations to make sure that you really set the precedence that your time is valuable also, and that you aren't just kind of sitting around waiting for people for free or working for free and that sort of a thing.
The no-show charges are a hotly debated thing in the world of therapy. I love that you
Absolutely.
have a firm boundary around it. Have you ever had colleagues give you pushback on not just maybe a no-show fee, but on other ways in which you seem to be really structured with your business? I know that I personally have gotten pushback, so I'm just curious if you've ever gotten pushback from colleagues.
I don't think I've had really much pushback from colleagues. I think generally colleagues have been on the same page because they also, I mean, I'm surrounding myself with people who also really value their time and energy. And so they want to protect it as much as possible as well. And so it hasn't been so much from colleagues, more so from clients who don't appreciate getting a late fee. And of course, none of us do, right? But there's a lot of things in place that say, like, we expect a 24-hour cancellation policy. And of course, there's so many exceptions to that too.
Love it. And what's kind of on the radar for you in 2021 as we're kind of getting ready to launch into whatever? It seems like everyone's like, oh, in the new year, everything will be different. But I'm curious if you've got big things kind of coming your way.
I know the new year is, oh my gosh, it's just around the corner. It feels like it's going to be tomorrow. By the time it gets here, it's going to be so fast. So I do actually have a big goal for myself for 2021. I am hoping to launch a group practice that provides mental health counseling in our community. And I would love to focus my efforts on hiring clinicians who are BIPOC folks or have specialties in working with LGBTQ populations. And so that's kind of where I see myself transitioning as a business owner.
Oh my gosh. So that's going to be a whole new venture. And maybe we'll have to talk to you again because starting a business in private practice is one thing, collaborating with others is one thing, but starting a business where you hire people either as contractors or employees, that's an entire new level of money mindset work and also just business acumen that you have to get into. I love that you are saying, look, I really want to cultivate a space of therapists and healers that is by and for BIPOC and LGBTQ folks. I'm also BIPOC, and I know when I looked for a therapist in the spring of 2020, it was so hard to find a place that was going to make me feel comfortable, right? And it's really weird. Like I list on my website, I'm like, I'm Filipina and white. Like that's what's up. That's who I am because I don't want anybody guessing. Like I found myself looking at therapist profiles and being like, are they tan or are they like brown like me? And I love that you're just normalizing and saying like, look, this therapist is Black, this therapist is queer, this therapist is Middle Eastern, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's really important. Yeah. Kudos to you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, I think that it's important that people, if they choose to be with a therapist they feel like represents them and their culture, that they have that option and that opportunity.
Yeah, I think it's so important. And I love that that's the next venture coming up for you. You mentioned Profit First as a resource that you really liked. What are other tools, podcasts, books that you really have found helpful in your money journey?
What I've actually found to be helpful, it's not necessarily a book or a podcast, but more of kind of a philosophy. What I found is that as long as I'm not afraid to talk about money, I'm always in a position where I'm like gaining and benefiting from a conversation that I'm having. And so what I've learned from other group practice owners or other private practice owners are the ones that are not afraid to have those conversations end up getting the most support, end up getting the most in terms of the answers that they're looking for and just direction, that sort of a thing. And so I've really learned that to be a little bit vulnerable and put yourself out there when you're talking about money actually does pay off.
Yeah, I think that is wisely said. And it's the more we talk about it, it takes away the shame, the stigma, the taboo. And that's where, I mean, we know as therapists, but also as humans, that when we don't talk about things, that's when they kind of grow and fester versus just saying like, look, this is the money mistake I made, or look, this is my financial goal for the upcoming year, and to have others around you offer support. and normalization is huge. So Haneen, before we wrap up today, what else are you working on for, when I look at your profile, you're doing so much, right? You've got like coaching, you've got supervision, you've got your therapeutic practice, and I know you've got your group practice or you're getting ready to launch your group practice. Of those different things, like what's really lighting you up today?
Well, I mean, they're all kind of lighting me up, but one thing that I absolutely love to do is host workshops. And I think that it gives me an opportunity to connect with such a wide range of people. It gives me an opportunity to connect with a co-host that facilitates that workshop with me. And they're just so much fun. Like I just have a blast hosting them. I really, really miss hosting them in person. And I like can't wait for the day that we can get back to doing that. But I feel like whenever I kind of maybe need a break from like offering all of the one-on-one stuff, getting to do it in that setting that feels so community-based is really fun and really lights me up.
What types of topics do you like to do your workshops on?
The last one that I did, it was on self-love. And then the one that I have coming up is more of a goal-setting type workshop. And so really just like a vast array of topics. We also did one recently on working with therapists and how to help them launch their own workshops, because I'm really passionate about also using workshops as a means to make kind of side income for people who might want to do it as a side hustle, but not necessarily do it all the time.
Can you give us just like a brief little outline of that workshop, of the workshop to help people with workshops? What did you guys cover in it?
Yeah. So we covered kind of some basics of how to really facilitate a good workshop, how to set community agreements and set the stage so that your participants really feel like they're coming into a space where their voice is valued, they have something to offer, they know when to, what to take away from that. It really gave them an opportunity to explore what types of workshops they would want to offer. And so we kind of set some activities up strategically that helped clinicians walk through identifying what they were passionate about, what they had in terms of expertise that they could teach others about, and then how to really market that to others and how to put themselves out there.
Oh my gosh, that sounds so fun. If you host it again, ping me, tag me. I would love to join. That sounds so cool.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, of course. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So where can everybody find you?
Online, on Instagram, on TikTok. So my website is haneenahmad.com, HANEENAHMAD.com. And my Instagram is haneen.licsw.
Yes. And I love your Instagram. I'm a fan and follower there. So yes, definitely make sure to check her out. Head to her website, follow her Instagram so you can be up to date if she hosts another workshop soon. All right,
Thank
Haneen.
you so much, Lindsay.
Yes, this was wonderful. Thank you. So Haneen and I recorded this back in 2020, and at that point in time, she was thinking about venturing out and doing something new. And I'm excited to share with you all the update that she is now the practice director at a group practice called Zane Counseling, also in Washington. And there she helps folks really create healthier, happier lives. And what I love about this practice is that she includes that at Zane Counseling, they stand in solidarity against racism and believe in advocacy, empowerment, and equality. And I think anytime a therapist or group practice can specifically say where they stand is an important way to fight back against racism, which kind of ties into my thank you at the start of this episode. All right, so let's get into the takeaways from my chat with Haneen. So the first one is learning from money mistakes. She shared getting comfortable with no-show fees or maybe having a hard time collecting them and then not having rolled over an old 401k account. And we know that when we name what our mistake is and help to make meaning of it, it helps to decrease that feeling of discomfort or internalizing shame. So if you can look back at past money mistakes, not with judgment, not with angst, but acknowledging, hey, that was a mistake that I'd made. It doesn't define who I am. And I've learned from it. I've moved on from it and it has taught me something. Then that can really help. And I love that Haneen was able to share some of her money mistakes with us and help to model for us all the importance of acknowledging our past money history. The second takeaway is embracing her entrepreneurial spirit. So for Haneen, she had clothing, then she branched out, as I mentioned, in private practice. She has partnered with other people doing workshops. She's a go-getter, right? She's an energized type of person who likes to get her hands in a bunch of different things and really embrace the creative side of being an entrepreneur. So I'm not saying this to say, oh, you need to go out there and be an entrepreneur. I'm pointing this out to say, what are the areas of your life where you really light up and become energized in some way? And then think about, how does that translate to your relationship with money? So let's say you light up when you think about traveling, or you get so excited, if you're like me, and you're geeking out right now over bread flours and kitchen scales and, ratios of water to flour for your sourdough. Just me? No, probably not. I think there's a lot of us out there who are following that trend. Think about the things that light you up, and then think about how they intersect with the way in which you spend your money. Are you spending money on things that don't light you up, that don't energize you? I know, of course, we have to spend money on certain things that don't really light us up or energize us, like utilities, stuff like that. But when you have discretionary funds, I want for you to think about, am I spending my discretionary funds on things that light me up? If you're not a big trendy clothing person like me, you probably don't get super excited about doing a big shopping haul. But if fashion is a way for you to express your creativity and it helps you to speak to different creators and artists by wearing their clothes or wearing their jewelry, then by all means, spend that discretionary money on things that light you up. And third and finally, Haneen had a strategy with her money, right? She is an organized person, as I mentioned, with that entrepreneurial spirit. But she said, look, I really look at my money through the lens of profit first. I look at my money through the community, which will be linked in the show notes, information about that. But what she did was she said, I know I do best in a community. I know I do best with a system or a guideline. And so she specifically sought out ways to strategize based on her unique makeup. For her, it looked like having profit first for her business bank account, and then also having a community of other women specifically who were open to talking about money. So those are the 3 takeaways. Learn from your money mistakes. Make sure that you're spending on things that light you up and energize you, and be strategy-based with your money. Again, don't forget, I've got 2 exciting events coming up. The first one is the Full Moon Money Shame Release Party on February 28th. And a free book birthday party to my book, The Financial Anxiety Solution, on Monday, March 8th at 5 p.m. Eastern. Everything you need is going to be linked in the show notes, or of course over on Instagram at Mind Money Balance at the link in my bio. And with that, I'll see you right here next week. If you love this episode, take a screenshot and tag me on Instagram at Mind Money Balance with your favorite takeaway. I love seeing what resonates with my listeners and sharing it in my stories. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'll see you next week, right here. Neither the host or guests are rendering legal, accounting, clinical, medical, or other professional information. If you want professional help, please seek it out.